graphing straight lines, going from a rule to a table to a graph. Straight lines on a graph are a relationship between x and y, and they often have rules such as y equals 2x plus 3, or y equals minus 3x, or things like that. And their rules come from a relationship between two things. So for example, let's have y equals 3x. That might be a relationship where the number of minutes late you are to class, for every minute, I'm going to give you 3 homework questions. How much homework you would get could be y. How many minutes late you would be x. And 3x means 3 times x. So 3 times the number of minutes late tells me how much homework, or how many homework questions you'd get. So then you could think in a sort of what if way. What if I was no minutes late, I was on time? 3 times 0, 0, no homework questions. What if I was 1 minute late? 3 times 1, 3 homework questions. So it's a relationship between two things that we can graph. Now our steps are, we make a table of values, and I'll talk more about that. And it's a good idea to use your calculator if you need to. From the table of values, we plot the points that we create in our table of values, and we check they should be in a straight line. If they're not in a straight line, we know we've done something wrong, especially if just one is out of line. After we have plotted our points, we join them with a straight line. The line goes all the way through the graph. Arrows at either end of the line to show that it could keep going, and we label the line with its rule. So here's some examples. Complete the table of values and graph the line y equals x plus 2. Now this is a table of values, and it's really a what if table. Up here with this rule, we said, well, what if I was 1 minute late? What if I was 2 minutes late? The table of values is saying, what if x was negative 1? What if x was what if x was 0? What would y be? What if x was 1? What would y be? And the rule is that y equals x plus 2. Whatever x is, y is always 2 more. So we can substitute in each of these values of x to find out what y would be, and that makes points. Now a little trick, it's easiest to start at 0 and go up into the positives and then do the negative one if we're feeling clever. So y equals x plus 2. What if x was 0? Y would be 0 plus 2. We're substituting it in. 0 plus 2 is 2. What if x was 1? Y would be 1 plus 2. It would be 3. What if x was 2? Substitute 2 in where the x is. Y equals 2 plus 2. 4. And you'll start to see there's a pattern. There's always going to be some sort of pattern in your y values. If there's not a pattern, something might be wrong. Y equals, now you can probably predict the next one. Predict it. Let's check if we're right. Y equals 3 plus 2 is 5. Now if ever we're not certain, we'd grab our calculator. So if we needed to check y equals x plus 2 and x is 3, we could do 3 plus 2. That's okay. And especially with the negatives. Now you can see with the negative now, you can probably follow the pattern back and predict what that is. But if we're not sure, just use your calculator. X is negative 1. Negative 1, plus 2, 1. So it's nice to check if we were right. So we've made a table of values, and now we plot the points. Each one of these, x, y, is a coordinate, x and y. So this one that we're starting with is -1, 1. We don't need to write them all out, we just need to plot them on our number plane. -1 on the x, 1 on the y. 0 on the x, 2 on the y. 1 on the x, 3, 2, 4, 3, 5. Check that they're in a straight line. Yes, they are. It means we did it correctly. Rule a straight line through all those points, taking up the whole graph as neatly as we can. Whole graph. Arrows at either end to say that it could have kept on going, and label it with its rule. Y equals x plus 2. And you have graphed that line. We'll do another one. Y equals 3x. This is our homework question. Table of values has x and y, and different values of x. Oops. Now really we only need 3 points. You can get away with 2, but 3 is much safer. But most of our table of values will go -1 up to 3. So use your calculator if you want, if you're feeling uncertain. Start with the 0 because it's easier. Y is 3x. What if x was 0? 3 times 0, check with the calculator if you need to. 3 times 0 is 0. Chances are we don't need a calculator for this one. 3 times 1 is 3. When x is 2, 3 times 2, 6. When x is 3, 3 times 3, 9. And especially when multiplying with negatives, we can always use a calculator. 3 times -1, 3 times -1, use the negative key, -3. Plot our points. When x is -1, y is -3. When x is 0, y is 0. So this line goes through the origin. When x is 1, y is 3, 2, 6, 3, 9. This one doesn't fit on the graph. That's okay. As long as you have 2 or 3 points on the graph, it's enough to check that they're all in a straight line. Yes, they are. Put the line all the way through the graph. Put arrows on either end. Label it with its rule. One more example. Y equals 2x minus 1. You'll see we're getting a bit more complicated with my rule. X and y on my table of values. Good idea to use a calculator for this. Start with the 0. 2 times 0, because x is 0 and 2x means 2 times x, take away 1, -1. When x is 1, 2 times 1, take away 1 is 1. Now you don't need to use a calculator if you're feeling fine about it, but you absolutely can to check. 2x, when x is 2, 2 times 2 is 4, take away 1 is 3. And we're probably starting to see the pattern here. What's the pattern? We're going up by 2 every time. Predict what this one will be. Then check. 2 times 3, take away 1. Were we correct? Now if we were going up by 2 here, then we can probably work out what the pattern is going back here. We can probably predict this one and take a minute to think about it. But then we can check. 2 times, when x is -1, -1, take away 1, -3. Did you get it right when you predicted it? I bet you did. We can graph more than one line on the same graph. That's why we label them. it can help to do it in different colours or with crosses instead of dots, and make sure you do one line and finish it all at once before moving on to the next one. -1, -3. Oh, it goes through the same spot. 0, -1, 1, 1, 2, 3, 3, 5. Now we'd possibly leave that one out because we wouldn't want to get our lines confused. Rule a line, arrow at either end, y equals 2x minus 1. We've learnt to graph lines.